I was driving past my own lake when I saw a real estate sign with my property listed for sale. Not for rent. Not coming soon. For sale. With a woman I had never met standing on the dock, giving a tour to buyers. She was pointing at my water, my shoreline, my land, and telling them it was hers. So I parked my truck across the only exit, locked the gate, and called the police. By the time they arrived, she was still trying to close the deal. And that's when everything exploded. The first thing I saw was the sign. Big, white, professional, stuck right at the edge of the gravel road that led down to my lake. For sale. I slammed the brakes so hard my coffee hit the dashboard. That road didn't belong to any HOA. It didn't belong to any developer. It didn't even belong to the county. It belonged to me. I'd inherited this lake and the surrounding land from my grandfather, 120 acres of shoreline, woods, and water that had been in my family since the 1940s. No easements, no shared access, no public entry. Just a private, deed-locked road with one heavy steel gate at the top. And somehow, someone was selling it. I rolled past the sign slowly, my chest tight, and that's when I saw the cars. 4 sedans. 1 shiny SUV. All parked along the dirt turnout near the dock. People were standing around in polite little clusters, holding folders and bottled water, doing that soft-spoken buyer talk that always comes with real estate showings. And in the middle of them, wearing a sharp blazer and oversized sunglasses, was a woman I had never seen in my life. She was smiling, pointing at the lake, selling it. I drove straight down the slope toward the dock. No horn, no warning, just gravel spraying as I pulled up and stepped out of the truck. The woman turned, still mid-sentence. And as you can see, this is one of the largest private lakes in the county. She stopped when she saw me. I walked right past her and onto the dock. This showing is over. A few of the buyers looked confused. One guy laughed awkwardly. The woman stepped forward, annoyed. "Excuse me, sir, you're interrupting a private tour." "Yeah," I said. "Mine." She scoffed. "This property is under contract." "No," I replied. "This property is under trespass." Her smile tightened. "Who are you?" "I'm the guy whose name is on the deed." That got her attention. She glanced at the buyers. "Just give us a moment." They stepped back, murmuring. She leaned toward me. "You must be mistaken. This lake belongs to Lakeshore Development, LLC. "No," I said calmly. "It belongs to my grandfather's estate, which belongs to me. And unless you're here to fish with permission, you're all trespassing." Her jaw clenched. "You don't know what you're talking about." I pulled my phone out and opened the county land registry. One tap. Parcel number. Deed. I held it up. Her face went pale. For half a second, she didn't say anything. Then she recovered fast. "Well," she snapped, "you can discuss that with the attorneys. This property is in the middle of a sale." I looked past her. At the open gate at the top of the hill. "The only way out." I smiled. "Not anymore." I turned, walked back to my truck, and drove straight up the gravel road. The buyers started talking loudly behind me. Someone shouted, "Hey!" I reached the gate, got out, and swung it shut. Then I slid the steel bar into place. Click. Lock. I took out my phone and called the sheriff's office. "There are people trespassing on my private land," I said. "They're attempting to sell property they don't own." The dispatcher asked for the address. I gave it. When I turned back around, the woman was halfway up the road, heels sinking into gravel, waving her arms. "You can't do this," she shouted. "You're interfering with a legal transaction." "You're committing fraud on my land," I said. "Enjoy the view while you wait." Behind her, the buyers were starting to realize something was very wrong. One man asked, "Is this a joke?" The woman snapped at him, "Just wait." But her hands were shaking. And deep down, she knew. She'd been caught trying to sell a lake that wasn't hers. The sheriff's office said they'd be there in 15 minutes. To the woman in the blazer, that might as well have been 15 years. She stood halfway up the gravel road staring at the locked gate like it had personally betrayed her. The group of buyers clustered behind her, whispering to each other now, their polite curiosity turning into visible unease. A man in a polo shirt stepped forward. "So, do you actually own this place?" The woman spun around. "Of course I do. There's just been a minor title dispute." I laughed. Not loud. Just enough. "There's no dispute," I said. "There's a fraud." Her eyes shot back to me. "You need to stop interfering. You're costing me money. You're trying to steal my lake." One of the women in the group pulled out her phone. "I'm Googling this property right now." Another buyer muttered, "This is getting weird." The real estate agent, because that's clearly what she was losing control of the room fast. Sweat had started to shine on her forehead, even though the breeze off the lake was cool. She tried a different tactic. "Look," she said, forcing a smile, "why don't we all just head back down to the dock and let this get sorted later?" "No one's going anywhere," I said. "You're on private property. And the only exit is that gate." The buyers stared at it. Then at me. Then at her. That's when the first person backed away from her. A middle-aged guy holding a brochure shook his head. "I'm out. This is shady." "I want my deposit back," another woman said. "There are no deposits yet," the agent snapped. But they weren't listening anymore. People don't like being trapped. Especially when they realize they might be part of a crime. She pulled her phone out and started texting furiously, probably whoever had told her this land was for sale. Her fingers were shaking so badly she kept hitting the wrong keys. "Someone is coming to straighten this out," she said, mostly to herself. "That's true," I replied. "The police." Her face went white. 10 minutes later, the first sheriff's cruiser rolled up, lights off but very real. A second one followed. 2 deputies stepped out and looked at the scene. Locked gate, confused buyers, and one furious man standing next to a truck. "That him?" one deputy asked. "That's me," I said. "And that woman is trying to sell my land." The agent opened her mouth, but I was already handing over my phone with the deed pulled up. The deputy took it, scanned it, and nodded. "Ma'am," he said calmly, "do you have documentation proving you own this property?" She froze. I work for the owner." "Who is?" She hesitated. That was the moment she lost. They separated her from the group and started asking questions. Real ones. Names. Companies. Contract. Every answer she gave only made things worse. The buyers watched from a distance as the deputy's expressions shifted from neutral to annoyed to very interested. After a few minutes, one deputy came back to me. "You're not kidding. This is your land." "I know. She doesn't have a single valid document. The LLC she mentioned doesn't even exist." I folded my arms. "So what happens now?" He glanced back at her. "Now we figure out how deep this goes." Behind him, the other deputy was already reading her rights. The agent didn't even make it through the first question. The deputy had barely finished reading her rights when she started talking, fast, frantic, and contradictory. "I was hired by Lakeside Property Group," she said. "They told me the land was theirs. I just show it. I don't do the paperwork." The deputy raised an eyebrow. "Lakeside Property Group doesn't exist." Her mouth opened, closed, opened again. I mean Lakeshore Development. Or something like that. It's all in my phone." "Then show us," the other deputy said. Her hands were shaking as she scrolled. Every email she opened just dug her deeper. Fake letterheads. Generic Gmail addresses. No tax IDs. No registered business. No real ownership documents. One deputy stepped away and started making calls. Meanwhile, the buyers had fully turned against her. "So this was all fake?" one of them demanded. "You brought us onto someone else's land?" another said, furious. The agent snapped. "I didn't know. I couldn't help myself." "You put up a for sale sign on private land and never checked who owned it?" Her eyes burned into me. "You set me up." "No," I said calmly. You trespassed. A few minutes later, the deputy came back. Here's what we've got, he said. This woman has been running fake listings across 3 counties. Vacant land, private lakes, inherited properties, anything without a full-time owner. The buyers stared at her like she was radioactive. She'd find properties that looked abandoned, slap up a sign, and try to get quick deposits before anyone checked the title. One man let out a low whistle. That's insane. It's fraud, the deputy replied. And a lot of it. They cuffed her right there, on my gravel road, in front of everyone. I didn't even get any money yet, she protested. That's not how the law works, the deputy said. As they walked her to the cruiser, she looked back at me with pure hatred. This isn't over, she spat. I smiled. For you it is. The buyers were released and escorted off the property, apologizing as they went. Most of them were still shaking, realizing how close they'd come to being dragged into a criminal scam. When the dust settled, the sheriff turned to me. You might have just stopped a ring of land fraud, he said. Good thing you showed up when you did. I looked out over the lake, calm, quiet, and very much still mine. She picked the wrong property to steal. By the time the cruiser pulled away, half the neighborhood had wandered down to see what the flashing lights were about. In places like this, nothing ever happens. So when something does, everyone notices. And this was big. The woman who had been confidently selling my lake just 15 minutes earlier was now sitting in the back of a patrol car, hands cuffed behind her back, mascara streaked down her face as she stared straight ahead in shock. The buyers stood off to the side, whispering to each other, some still clutching their glossy brochures that now felt like evidence from a crime scene. One of the deputies stayed behind with me. You have no idea how lucky you were to show up today, he said. Most people don't catch this until after money changes hands. What happens to them? I asked, nodding toward the buyers. They'll be contacted as witnesses. Some of them were seconds away from wiring deposit. You probably saved them tens of thousands. He wasn't exaggerating. The deputy also told me something that made my stomach tighten. This woman has been flagged before. She targets inherited land, rural properties, lakes, farms, places that don't have full-time owners watching them. My jaw clenched. So she's done this before. Yeah. And now she's done. The sheriff's department kept my gate locked while they finished documenting everything. They took photos of the sign, the brochures, the fake listing sheets she'd handed out. They even pulled the sign out of the ground and tagged it as evidence. The lake was officially part of a fraud investigation. Within an hour, I started getting calls. Not from the woman. From real estate agencies. Apparently, when the deputies ran her phone, they found dozens of fake listings, and several of them were being advertised through legitimate real estate platforms using stolen agent credentials. Those companies were scrambling to shut everything down before it turned into a national scandal. One agent actually apologized to me. We have no record of this listing, she said. Someone hijacked our system. I stood on my dock, looking at the water that almost got sold out from under me. Make sure it never happens again. By evening, the story was already spreading through local social media group. Fake realtor arrested selling private lake. People shared it like wildfire. And every time someone asked, how did the owner find out? The answer was simple. He drove by and caught her in the act. But the story wasn't over yet. Because once detectives dug into her phone and emails, they realized something even worse. She hadn't just tried to sell my lake. She'd been running a multi-state land theft scam. And now, thanks to one locked gate and one phone call, it was finally unraveling. The news vans showed up the next morning. 2 of them parked right at the bottom of my gravel road, their logos glaring against the quiet trees. Reporters stood with microphones, pointing at the lake like it was a crime scene, which, in a way, it was. A fake real estate agent had tried to sell it, and she'd been arrested doing it. By noon, the story was everywhere. Woman caught selling private lake. Land scam exposed after owner locks gate. Fake realtor arrested in property fraud scheme. My phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Detectives called first. Sir, we're expanding the investigation, one of them said. We've connected your case to at least 14 other fake land listings across 3 states. Farms. Empty estates. All targeted by the same woman using different names. So she really was stealing land, I said. Yes, he replied. You just happened to catch her in the act. They asked me for every document I had. The deed, tax records, old survey maps, photos of the gate. They were building a case not just for trespassing and fraud, but for organized real estate theft. The buyers she'd tricked were calling too. One man told me, I was about to wire $50,000 as a deposit. You saved me. Another said she'd been showing them 3 different lakes in 2 weeks, all supposedly owned by the same company. None of it was real. That afternoon, the district attorney made it official. The woman was being charged with felony fraud, identity theft, criminal trespass, and conspiracy. They'd found multiple stolen agent accounts on her phone, along with fake corporate paperwork designed to fool buyers and listing platforms. The judge denied her bail. When I heard that, I finally exhaled. 4 days after, people kept driving by the gate just to look at the lake that almost vanished into a scam. A few neighbors even brought me coffee and pastries, like I'd just survived something bigger than I had. And maybe I had. Because if I'd taken a different route that morning, if I hadn't noticed that sign, my family's lake could have been tied up in legal chaos for years. But instead, it was quiet again. No buyers. No fake agents. No for sale signs. Just water, trees, and a locked gate. Sometimes, the only thing standing between what's yours and someone trying to steal it is being there when it matters.